Hi, I'm Allison Barnes, the Assistant Director of Public Education for JCRC Bay Area. This video is for anyone who's curious about, interested in, or maybe even a little concerned by the new ethnic studies requirement for high schoolers in California. In this video, we'll cover the history of ethnic studies, as well as what California Ed Code actually requires, and how you, as a parent, student, educator, or community member, can get involved to learn more. Ethnic studies is an interdisciplinary academic field that was made to study four main groups of people: Latino Americans, African Americans, Native Americans, and Asian Americans. It covers the culture, history, and impact of these groups and explores how concepts of race, ethnicity, and nation influence the power expressed by government, society, and individuals. In the United States, ethnic studies evolved as a key issue during the Civil Rights Movement and has been a highly politicized area of academia ever since. The first College of Ethnic Studies in the US was founded at San Francisco State University in 1969. It developed in response to the traditional social sciences like history, anthropology, literature, sociology, philosophy, and more being taught from a Eurocentric perspective. SF State had the only College of Ethnic Studies in the US until 2019, when CSU Los Angeles established theirs. So, how did a collegiate academic field become a hot-button topic in K-12 education? Well, in California, we had Assembly Bill 101, also known as AB 101, pass, and it requires ethnic studies as a California graduation requirement for high schoolers. California's education code is a collection of laws and requirements that govern California's public and public charter schools. In Section 51225.3 of the California Ed Code, we find the class requirements for high schoolers to graduate and earn a high school diploma. In 2021, AB 101 added ethnic studies to the required coursework for 9th through 12th grade students. Let's take a look at what California Ed Code says about ethnic studies. This section explains that students in the graduating class of 2030 must have taken a one-semester course in ethnic studies at some point in high school in order to graduate. That public and charter high schools must begin to offer at least one ethnic studies, elective or otherwise, by the 2025-2026 school year. It also explains that a local school board has the authority to require a full year of ethnic studies should they want to. This section explains how the ethnic studies graduation requirement can be met based on what the school board makes available at their local schools. So here's what matters. An ethnic studies course does not need to be based on the state's model curriculum. There could already be a legitimate ethnic studies class in place, or it could be created locally and the district could adopt it. California Ed Code requires the curriculum to be presented at a public meeting of the governing board and not approved until a subsequent meeting, after the community has been able to provide feedback. And any class that does not use ethnic studies content as its primary content will not meet the requirements of ethnic studies. This section is crucial. It provides the guidelines for the content within an ethnic studies class. It must be appropriate for use with pupils of all races, religions, nationalities, genders, sexual orientations, and diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds, pupils with disabilities, and English learners. And it cannot reflect or promote directly or indirectly any bias, bigotry, or discrimination against any person or group of persons on the basis of any category protected by Section 220. It also states that local agencies should not include any parts of the draft model curriculum that were not adopted by the Instructional Quality Commission due to concerns related to bias, bigotry, and discrimination. So what does that leave us with? Essentially, it gives us a list of things an ethnic studies class must achieve and must not achieve. As districts begin to adopt their ethnic studies curriculum, they need to keep these goals top of mind to ensure that an ethnic studies class both meets the requirements academically and keeps the instruction and content free from any bigotry, bias, or discrimination. You may be asking, isn't there a model curriculum that teachers can use? And the answer is yes. California did adopt an ethnic studies model curriculum. The Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, often abbreviated as ESMC, contains sections such as implementation and instructional guidance for districts, sample lessons, topics, and teaching resources, and UC-approved course outlines. While many assume it's a fully formed curriculum because of its name, the ESMC is actually just a set of recommendations for content and implementation. This means that a teacher can't just take it off the shelf and use it in their classroom. Instead, the burden is placed on the teacher to create the lesson plans, and they may not have the correct training or time to do so. Neither is the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum to be confused with a set of standards. Content standards show a teacher the minimum required to teach in a certain subject area. The Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, on the other hand, is a set of recommendations and guidelines for content and implementation. It is not mandatory or required. The only mandatory elements are those listed in Ed Code. Recently, a new bill was presented in California, AB 1468. This bill calls for the creation of state standards for ethnic studies. If it passes, we will have a list of required content for ethnic studies. Until then, the only requirements are those present in California Ed Code. School districts adopt curriculum for every subject and grade level taught in a public school. Some of the curricula come from national or even international businesses. Others are developed locally by the educators, and even still others are developed by outside small organizations or individuals. JCRC Bay Area serves more than 200 public school districts that each have their own school boards. Each school board could potentially approve multiple ethnic studies curricula for the sites that they govern. The sheer numbers of these adoptions means that new questions and concerns about curriculum pop up constantly, and it can feel overwhelming to understand and address all of them. Let's look at some actionable steps that you can take to stay informed about curriculum adoptions and some strategies you can use to assess curriculum for accuracy and bias. Number 1, get involved with your local school board. Read the agenda, attend the meetings, and read the minutes. This will help you know when adoptions are coming up and should give you information about what curriculum is being considered. Participate in public comment to share your research, concerns, and suggestions. Number 2, do your research. Review the content of the course to ensure it meets the requirements. Be specific in your criticisms should you find areas of concern. Number 3, don't fall victim to curricula that promises to espouse a certain moral stance you agree with and accept it at face value. Read through it thoroughly with an open mind and note anything that is especially valuable or troubling. Both are important for the school board to hear. In the Bay Area, we see many curriculum that are based on specific ideological perspective, the most famous of which being liberated ethnic studies. We need to get beyond the name and ask, what do these organizations actually want? And does it match with the requirements from the state in California State Ed Code? Liberated Ethnic Studies says it aims to examine, address, and fight against white supremacy, but often uses anti-Semitic rhetoric and denies the Jews their indigenous ties to the land of Israel. Clearly, this content would violate the state mandate of not including any bias or bigotry in the classroom. Courses with this ideology cannot be adopted by school districts and be considered to meet the restrictions put forth by the state. Additionally, liberated ethnic studies often uses international examples and stories for its content, which is more similar to the field of international relations than it is to traditional ethnic studies. Some other groups with strong ideological perspectives, while not targeting a specific group with bias, do attempt to remove discussions of race, ethnicity, nation, and power from the content of ethnic studies. These ideas are key to the academic field of ethnic studies, and if excluded, a course of this nature would likely no longer fulfill the state requirements of a class centered on ethnic studies. It is key to review a curriculum in its totality to assure it's appropriate for all students, it teaches the required content, and that it's unbiased. Currently, ethnic studies is not an area of study that independent or private schools are required to offer based on Ed Code. This means that these schools can choose whether to teach a course in this subject or not. Should they choose to offer or require an ethnic studies class at their school, these private schools are not bound by the guidelines, restrictions, or requirements that the state puts forth about what content to cover. Ethnic studies is not unique in this. The state offers very little guidance as to what private schools must or must not cover within any content area. One factor that may impact whether we see more Bay Area schools adopting ethnic studies is whether it becomes a requirement for the UC or CSU college admissions process. If it does become a requirement, it's likely that we'll see an increase in ethnic studies classes offered at independent high schools. Whether your child attends a public or a private school, the pathway to ensuring that your child is getting a thorough and unbiased education that is free of hate or discrimination is the same. Get involved. From the outset, build positive working relationships with your child's teachers, principals, heads of school, school staff, and district administrators or board members. It's easier to address concerns when there's already a strong positive relationship in place. Attend and participate in board meetings. If getting to them in person proves challenging, ask to participate via Zoom or email in a public comment on issues of concern. At a minimum, ask how to receive the agenda and meeting minutes and read through the documents each month. When it comes to ethnic studies specifically, it is imperative for our community to remain calm and focused. When a new curriculum is presented for adoption or lessons begin to pop up at school, ask to preview the curriculum. Share your concerns with the teacher and help create solutions. If, for any reason, the school is not receptive to your concerns or you need additional support to identify and address concerning content, reach out to JCRC for additional support. We hope that this video has addressed some of the main questions and concerns regarding California's high school ethnic studies requirement. JCRC will continue to update the community on an ongoing basis about new developments, legislation, and our work to support bias-free ethnic studies throughout the Bay Area. Join our mailing list and stay tuned for more. For more information about Jewish inclusion in school communities, ethnic studies lesson plans, and resources to combat anti-Semitism in K-12 schools, please visit the links in the description of this video, jcrc.org/resources and esresource.org.